Alright everyone, time for another literary update. This is a relatively short work, 52 pages. It's called Abraham Lincoln the Practical Mystic for Occult Literature, video number 267. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon, second and third links to my books blogs. I don't really have anything comparable to this. I'm not even sure what category, honestly, at the moment to put it in. It's technically about mysticism, but kinda sorta. It's a really strange work. If you're into political history as it intertwines with religion or spirituality, this is going to be one of the premier works for you. It's a little bit Germanophobic because it comes from the early 1900s. You look up Kaiser Wilhelm and some of the propaganda associated with that if you want to see sort of the sign of the times that this is coming from. And there's definitely Abe Lincoln worship in it. Like one thing that happened back then, there was a strong civic aspect to U.S. culture around that interwar period, and Abe Lincoln figured heavily in it. Abe Lincoln and Washington mostly. To a lesser extent, some of the others, Jefferson, you'd think later on, certainly Theodore Roosevelt, but of course at that time was a fairly new face in politics, at least at that level. So you've got a little bit of this aspect of thinking Lincoln is like perfect. Like this uses almost religious language to describe Abe Lincoln. That being said, though, despite the inaccuracy of what it says about the reasons for secession, despite the somewhat inaccurate portrayal of Lincoln as this propagandized, larger-than-life, truly religious figure, sort of like a modern-day Moses, it speaks about dream interpretation, dreams Lincoln had, visions that he had, which have been reported on heavily. Those two aspects of the Lincoln mythos with regards to sort of folkloric accounts of his own supernatural encounters are quite popular. I remember seeing documentaries on that sort of shit in the latter days. More recently, you get tales of Lincoln's ghost and seances calling forth Lincoln and stuff like that, and it's always very spooky woo. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. It goes into quite a few numbers of cases in his life where he would listen to sermons and say things that seemed predictive, especially with regards to the coming of the Civil War. Some of that, of course, is hindsight 2020, and we can't necessarily relate the accuracy of the anecdotes said because, of course, he wasn't well known at the time in some cases. So nobody was following him around scribbling down every quote that he made. It's just personal recollections that after his death may or may not have even been accurate in some cases. That being said, though, there are a large number of specific cases involved. Then there's just the regular sort of religious overtones of some of the things discussed. Like there was one particular tale talking about Lincoln's wisdom, and they were talking about some Confederate mother or wife had come forth to beg Lincoln to release her son or husband or something, and said, oh, well, he's very pious and religious, and Lincoln answered something to the effect of, well, it's good that he's religious because you'd have to be religious to think that you're going to win the Civil War, basically, or something to that effect. And there was some dry humor in this as well. A few of the accounts are humorous. But it's basically a good compilation of anecdotal tales with regards to Lincoln's spiritual life and some of the visions and dreams and so forth that he had. It's a topic, it's definitely a niche topic, I understand that, but it is well written. And of course, because of format, it was something like 130 pages long before compressed into a modern format. This happens frequently, so technically this would have counted as an almost full-length work at the time. Works from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Usually the typeface, the spacing, formats, margins, everything like that, wacky, totally different from modernity, and equally so as the early 1800s where everything was like, oh my god, it's compressed as much as possible. It was like they were trying to put a whole book on a single page. You'll notice there's a huge difference between the early and late 19th century. And that's kind of a rant. Just the bibliophile side of me noticing something. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It is a very well-written work, although it is admittedly a niche sort of little manuscript. I think some people, though, may enjoy it for the political history as well as some of the sarcasm. So, some of the flowery religious language in it becomes funny. And again, second and third links to my books blogs. Not sure yet which category I'm actually going to slap this into. I'm going to have to think about it. I should have a humor category, but I don't have one. That's about all. Peace out.